You know that feeling, right? You're in a conversation and all of a sudden you're just aware of your own eyes. Like, am I staring too much? Not enough? It's this weird, silent, universal tension. So what is actually going on in our heads when that happens? Yeah, why is it so awkward? I mean, on the surface, it's such a simple thing, but it's loaded with all these unspoken rules and this intense feeling. Let's really get into the psychology behind this strange little social dance we all do.
And I think this really hits the nail on the head. This Reddit user says, "It feels too intimate for me." And that's it, isn't it? It's not just about the act of seeing someone. It's about the feeling of being seen. And sometimes that can feel like way too much intimacy, way too fast.
Okay, and then there's this, which is pretty blunt, but it captures the two poles our brain seems to immediately jump between. It's like this instant, high-stakes calculation. The moment someone holds our gaze for just a little too long, our brain goes to one of two very primal places. So this really starts to put it all together. Our brains are basically hardwired to see prolonged eye contact as a big deal. It's a signal for intense social attention, which can easily tip over into feeling like a mild threat. It just forces us to process this flood of information that can be, well, a lot. So let's talk about that. Friend or foe? The primal calculation. Because this feeling, it's not some new thing. It's not just modern social anxiety. No, this goes way back. It's an ancient survival instinct. When someone looks you in the eye, your brain has to make a very, very fast decision. Exactly. It's a critical signal. This is way deeper than just being polite or rude. We're talking about a deep-seated neurological response. A direct stare triggers this immediate, totally subconscious assessment that goes straight to the oldest, most primitive part of our brain, the part that's just trying to keep us alive. And in that split second, our brain is basically running down two possible paths. On one side, you've got threat. Is this a challenge? A sign of dominance? Is this a predator? And that triggers our fight or flight. But on the other side, you've got intimacy. Is this a connection? A sign of trust? A potential mate? The problem is your brain has to figure out which it is, like, now. And that's where all that awkwardness and anxiety bubbles up. Okay, but it's not just about this primal fear, right? It's also just a system overload. I love the subtitle when your brain has too many tabs open, because that's exactly what it feels like. Turns out our brains only have so much processing power, and a direct gaze is a massive, massive stream of data to handle. So there's actually a technical term for this: audio-visual integration. And all that means is it's the process of your brain trying to combine what it sees with what it hears. But during a conversation, when you're trying to listen to the words and process all the information coming from someone's face, that whole system can just get totally overloaded. And this quote from a study participant just nails it. It's like I need to shut off the visual input in order to completely process the oral input. I mean, have you ever done that? You're talking to someone and you have to look away for a second just to actually hear what they're saying? That's what this is. You're not being rude. You're literally just reallocating your brain's processing power. And that brings us to this really frustrating irony, doesn't it? You make eye contact to prove that you're listening, to show you're engaged, but the very act of doing that can make it physically harder, sometimes even impossible, to actually listen. So now let's go a little deeper. Window to the soul, a heightened experience. Because for a lot of people, this isn't just a moment of awkwardness. It's something much more intense, sometimes even painful. And some of the clearest descriptions of this come from firsthand accounts from people on the autism spectrum. For some, the feeling isn't just awkward. It's an invasion. And it's important to understand this isn't something totally different. It's the same systems we've been talking about, the threat detection, the sensory overload, but amplified. It's an unfiltered, more powerful version of that same experience. I mean, listen to this. Eye contact makes me feel like prey that's been spotted by a predator. This brings us right back to that friend or foe calculation, but it's not a question anymore. It's the full-on, visceral feeling of being hunted. And that feeling of invasion just keeps going. It makes me feel naked, exposed, weak, if you will. It's this profound sense of vulnerability, the idea that someone can just see right into you without your consent. And sometimes it's not just emotional or psychological, it's physical. As this person says, eye contact is physically painful, a direct, unavoidable bodily response. Okay, and I want to preface this next quote by saying it's incredibly powerful, and it might be unsettling.
But it really shows the absolute peak of what this experience can feel like. One person described it as being raped on a spiritual level. And that really illustrates the profound sense of violation that for some, a simple gaze can represent.
So, with all that in mind, how do people deal with this? How do we decode the gaze? And I want to be clear here. This next part is about observation, not judgment. This isn't advice. It's just a look at the really clever ways people have figured out how to manage this really fundamental part of being human.
This is such a key point. That feeling of awkwardness, it's not a social failure. It's not your fault. Think of it more like a system feature. It's just part of our human operating system. And like any quirky system feature, people have found some really clever workarounds. So here are just a few of those compensation strategies. Again, not rules, just observations. You've got things like the triangle technique, where you shift your gaze between someone's eyes and their mouth, or just looking at their nose or eyebrows instead of directly in the eye. There's even this idea of the 50-70 rule, making eye contact about 50% of the time when you're talking and 70% when you're listening. Or my favorite, just kind of blurring your focus. All of these are just ways to give the signal of eye contact without paying the full cognitive and emotional price. So I want to leave you with this thought. What if awkward isn't a sign that you're failing socially? What if that feeling is just the sound of two brains trying their best and maybe failing a little to achieve a perfect connection? Maybe it's just the sound of our deep, primal, overloaded brains trying to reach each other, a process that's always going to be imperfect, a little intense, and, deeply human.